Jackie Browning with Wallflower Greetings, and welcome to my video tutorial. It's been a while since I've made one, so I hope you enjoy this project. Today we're going to do something very different. We are going to stamp on mugs. So let me show you what I have here. I'm going to show you how to do this one right here, which is a floral mug that is using our alcohol markers. They're called blends, and this is a really simple way to decorate a mug. Doesn't take a lot of artistic talent at all, and your kids would love to do this as well. So it's a great project for adults and for kids. Then there's this one, which is just a black and white version where I stamped butterflies and a couple of sentiments. So I will show you how to do that one. And then finally, here's a variation, which I'll explain how I did this one. This is got the alcohol blends all around the outside of the mug and all the butterflies stamped on top of it. So that is what we're going to be doing today. So let's get started. So to make the floral mug, of course, you're going to need a mug. This comes from the Dollar Tree, and I love it because it's a little bit easier to stamp because the sides are slightly flattened on the front and the back. So I really like these mugs, and they're inexpensive, so that's a great bargain. So I have my mug. You're going to need some Stampin' Blends alcohol markers, and you want 3 to 4 different colors. I'm going to change up my color combination here. You're also going to need the color lifter. So I've got light cherry cobbler. I've got, I think that was dark pool party, or it could be light pool party, I'm not sure. Dark old olive and dark daffodil delight. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to like this combination on the mug, but the great thing about it is it's okay because you can wipe it right off and start over again. The other thing to notice is that if you are doing alcohol ink on a cardstock like Whisper, or I should say basic white, then it's going to look darker and more vibrant than on the mug because the mug has a different slick surface. So just keep that in mind. You're also going to need a damp paper towel or a damp rag of some sort. I'm using one of my husband's handkerchiefs because I think it's really great for this. Now you can either have it with water or you can use rubbing alcohol, but either one will take the ink right off, because if you haven't set it yet, you still have time to redo it. Even if you let it set for a long time, you can scrub it right off and start over. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my background of my mug by using the pool party, and I want the wide tip. And I always have to open it up because I can't see the markings. So I've got my white tip, and what I'm going to do is what I did is you can do anything you want, but I just did circles all over. Kind of just random circles, overlapping all over. I wouldn't go all the way up to the very, very top or the very rim of the mug, just to be on the safe side, because you're going to drink out of it, even though you're going to set your mug. I just think it's a good idea. I have sped up this process so you don't have to watch me making little scribbles all over the mug, but you just want to cover the area and get underneath the handle if you can. The second step is to lay down the flowers. So I'm going to take my light cherry cobbler, and again, I'm not sure, I wanted a different color, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this combination, so we will see. And I did smaller circles, just to kind of mimic roses, or it could be any flower you want it to be. And see, I'm not sure, that's quite a bit. I'm gonna make my circles a little wider to leave some white. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. And you know, I'm just gonna, maybe I'll do kind of a little, like an @ symbol, and kind of go around that way. That kind of works a little bit better. Let's see. But you can also use the color lifter. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Let me put my hand in the mug, so that's better. Okay. So yeah, leave some white space, but you can also use the color lifter to kind of redistribute some of your flowers and give it a little bit more interest. And some are bigger than others. I'm trying to make some a little smaller and a little larger, like that. Okay, so I'm going to take my color lifter now, kind of move stuff around a little bit, see if I can create a little bit more interest or whatever. Find the right end here. Okay, and I find it's easier to put your hand inside the mug to hold it. So I'm just going to start. Yeah, that's good. That moves it around really good, and I'm kind of dabbing it. That seems to work pretty well, just kind of dabbing it on. So that it's not so painful, I have sped up this process once again. For this next step, I am adding some Daffodil Delight yellow to the centers of my flowers where the white spaces are. This really gives it some great definition and helps the flowers to really pop. Now I'm going to add some leaves by taking my Old Olive Blends marker and just dabbing some little dots or leaf shapes onto my mug. I thought originally that I would blend these in, but I really like the way they stood out, and it really makes the design come together. Again, I have sped up this process, and now here is my final finished mug. I think it turned out to be very, very pretty. So the next mug we're going to make is a version of this original mug that you see here. I used a couple of different stamp sets, but we're going to only use one for today. We're using a black ink pad called StazOn, which is great because it is an alcohol-based ink. So the stamp set that I'm going to use today is Positive Thoughts. We're going to use the butterfly that is on this mug. We're also going to use a flower that's on here, and I decided not to use a sentiment, but I had originally had that planned out to use hugs, prayers, and love from this stamp set. So you'll notice on this mug, my original mug, I stamped a large sentiment. This was very difficult to do for a couple of reasons. First of all, it is a large stamp, so you need to consider that because the larger they are, the harder they are to stamp on a rounded surface. Also, the lettering is very fine and detailed, so this made it very difficult, and it took many tries before I got it the way I wanted it. But I was determined to get this one on there because I really liked what it said, and I thought it was perfect for a mug. So the other thing that you need to consider is you will probably, most likely, when you're learning to stamp on a mug, you will most likely smear it. This is something that happens because you're stamping on a slick surface. But don't worry, you can always wipe it off and start over. I also have discovered that it gets easier over time. Okay, so I've got my stamp mounted on my block. I've got my ink. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is that originally I put this on a larger block. This is the D block, which I love to use because it's the most common that you, for a lot of the stamp sets and a lot of the stamps, the D block works great. Sometimes you'll need a bigger block for really large stamps, but most of the time you can get away with using this one, except what I recommend for stamping on these type of things like a mug, you really want to make sure that your stamp fits or matches as close as possible to the size of your block. So I'm going to open my StazOn ink pad, and this is a fairly large stamp, so I'm going to, instead of bringing the ink pad to the stamp, I'm actually going to stamp, stamping on the ink pad, I'm going to bring the ink pad to the stamp. So I'm going to turn my stamp upside down, face up, I guess I should say, and I'm just going to stamp. And what I also like to do for this, because it's a drier ink, in other words, it's not squishy like our other ink pads are, so I'm going to rub it across there as well to get it nice and inked up. Now, you have to go kind of quickly because StazOn does dry kind of fast. You might want to huff on it if you want to moisten it up. This is the larger stamp, so I am stamping first on this, and I'm going to stamp kind of at an angle. See if I can do this on camera. I need to roll it. And see, it's okay, but I don't like how the top turned out. So, got my handy cloth here. I'm just going to rub it right off. Okay. Probably need to let it dry for a minute. Might want a paper towel, actually, to dry it off. I guess while that side, I'm going to do both sides, so while that side is drying, let's try this again. So I'm going to ink up my stamp. See if I can do this one-handed. Maybe. Okay. See how this goes. So you have to stamp and then tilt one direction and then tilt the other. It does take a little bit of a practice, but you have plenty of opportunity. So I think I want it going this way, so let's see if I can do it that way. Ooh, see, didn't like it. So you just do this over and over again. You may have to do it several times. Another stamping was actually a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to flip it over, try this side again. All right, so I have my flowers the way I want them. Are they perfect? No, but I like the way they look, so I'm going to stick with that. So just get it to where you like the way it looks, and don't get too fussy with it. Now, one of the things that you may notice is I left some space up here towards the lip. You don't want to stamp all the way to the top. Even though we're going to heat set these, and you can drink out of them, I just be careful about getting ink at the very, very top, just in case. In this next step, I actually stamped the sentiment Hugs, Prayers, and Love from the Positive Thoughts stamp set. But I ended up taking it off later because I didn't like it. It was too cluttered along with all the other butterflies that I added. Okay, y'all, through the magic of television, I have stamped all my butterflies. It was really hard to do that on camera. But you can see I've added quite a few of them going in different directions, you know, left and right, just so they're fluttering around. This one, you notice, smeared a little bit, but I kind of liked the effect personally because to me it looks like it's fluttering a little bit, but that's just me. But anyway, here's this side, and I have 3 butterflies, and as you come around to the side, you've got 3. Or, well, yeah, 3 coming around, and then on the other side the flower with a couple of other butterflies. So I just have them going different directions. The other thing I tried, and I thought this would be pretty cool, but I didn't like the way it looked. I tried to stamp part of the butterfly on the actual handle of the mug, but it didn't turn out. I did it several times and just didn't like the effect. But I feel like the handle needs something. But what we're going to do is, just like with the other mug, I'm going to take my Sharpie here. It's a fairly fine tip Sharpie. And I'm going to put my hand inside the mug. And I'm just going to do little dots everywhere. So I went ahead and sped up the video for you so you didn't have to sit through me dotting everything on my mug. I just filled in all the white spaces and made it look the way I wanted, and also put some dots on the handle. And now here's my finished mug. I'm going to now show you this other mug that I made, and I'm not going to demonstrate stamping it because it's pretty much the same. It was this one right here that has the alcohol ink background, and I'll put all the ink colors down below in the description. But basically what I did is I did my coloring, and I just did like lines all the way around to kind of make sort of a background that looks like maybe the ocean and sky, or some grass and sky, like a sunset kind of. And I went all the way around, and then I stamped my butterflies just going different directions on top of that. Now, let me tell you the secret that makes it this better. I actually did this color background like a year ago. And so it had been sitting there all that time. I just used it. I didn't drink out of it or wash it. I just used it to put my stuff in. And so a year later, I decided to stamp on it. And it worked just fine, even though I messed up a couple of times. And like this butterfly, I just didn't fix it at all because I thought it looked kind of cool. But I did have to wipe off a couple of them, like I think this one possibly. And so it did take off a little bit of the background ink. So that there's a secret to that, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. And it's to fire or to seal your mugs first and then stamp your ink over the top of it. That'll work much better. But since I had this for so long, I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and try it. And it worked okay. Now, the other thing is and the reason why you want to do this is because the blends are alcohol, and StazOn is alcohol ink. So they will bleed together or blend together, okay? And that's a good thing in a lot of cases, but you don't really necessarily want to do that with your images and your background. The final step in the process is to heat set your mugs. To do this, simply place them face down on a cookie sheet. Make sure they are not touching. I have lined my cookie sheet with butcher paper to protect my mugs. Place them in a cold oven and set your temperature at 350 degrees. Bake for 30 minutes. When you take them out, be very careful because they will slide around and they will be extremely hot. Let them cool, and I suggest not using them until 48 hours later. That way they are really set. Enjoy your mugs. If you love this video, please share the love with others and give me a thumbs up or a like. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the little bell in the corner to subscribe to more videos by Wallflower Greetings by Becky.